Hey guys, Stephanie here with the Aeroponic Tower channel, and today I am doing a chore that I've been putting off for a really long time. I am cleaning my home unit and getting it all back set out. So I shut this one down probably early summer. We just got too busy. I had planned on planting it out and putting it inside and just got too busy to maintain that. So it's just been kind of in a timeout, and I wanted to take the opportunity to get it really clean because over the summer, these towers do get pretty dirty. They'll get algae, which is completely normal, and they just need a good scrubbing sometimes after the summer season. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm using a special solution that I've never actually used before. Alright, and what I used is a citric acid powder. I've heard people on the internet say they soak their towers in this overnight and it works really well. I was hoping it would just do all the work and I wouldn't have to scrub these, but that's not happening. And I only left these for a few hours, so maybe that's the difference. I'm 50-50 on this. I felt like this was pretty expensive and I had to use half this bag, which is about 3 cups, just for this one tower, so I don't know if it's worth it. I've been able to typically just scrub mine with some Dr. Bronner's soap and a scrub brush, or these microfiber cloths, but I thought I would give it a try. So the parts that get super dirty are these baby greens extension kits, and it's just because there's a lot more smaller parts on them. So what I'm gonna do is scrub these a little bit, and then I'm gonna blast them with the hose and see if I can't just get most of it off with the hose. I also like to say never allow your tower to get fully grown and dirty where you have to take everything off and start over, because that can take a really long time to get back into a good interval planting system where you have food to harvest all the time. So I actually have mature plants that are going to go into this. I have another home tower that needs a cleaning, and some new starts. So I'm going to put new starts in here, and I'm going to transfer more mature plants that I want to keep from the other home unit over to here, and do that with a couple of, and then clean that one, and then I have another tower I want to clean, and I'll place the plants in there. And that's just going to help me to make sure I have mature plants in all of my towers, as well as new seedlings, because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm starting from scratch with any of these. Now, this time of year, as we're ending the summer, a lot of my stuff is really coming to an end of its fruiting cycle. Not everything, but a lot of it's coming to an end. The tomatoes are coming to the end of their life, and that means I need to be starting more seeds than I typically would be starting, because I'm going to have a lot more spots that come available. And in that case, when you can't interval plant, it's a good idea to diversify what you're planting. And I'm planting things that grow really fast, like zucchini and squash and peas, alongside my winter and fall crops and greens that grow really fast, and some peppers that'll grow slower, and that helps to also fill the gap. This is a little stingy. I hope it doesn't bleach my clothes, but I guess they're work clothes, so it's fine. The other thing I'm doing is I pulled out an old collard, and I like to reuse all my net pots. So I'm trying to get this one to soak a bit so I can get my net pot back out of these roots. I just throw all of this into the compost pile. We're gonna let that soak a little bit longer, and these hold up really well. Kind of evaluating the year so far and how we've done with food. There's some things I grew too much of. There's some things I didn't grow that I regret, like okra. I really wish I would have grown some okra. So I know next year I have some things I want to do a little bit differently. I want to plant my peppers a little bit differently so that I can really focus on their health and getting them to produce more. I'm doing that now that we're moving into the fall. I'm able to give them a little more attention, but they got kind of buried behind tomatoes. So there are some things I want to do differently next year, and it's great to take note of that. But the overall cost to grow in these systems is very, very small, which is awesome, because I don't feel bad. Like, I am pulling out some tomatoes before I actually have to, just because I want to start growing some peas and some other things, and we have so many tomatoes, and I don't really have to feel bad about pulling out plants a little bit early that I have too many of. I have too many shishito peppers, so I'm going to pull some of those pepper plants out, because the cost to grow the food is so minimal in these that I've already gotten way more than I invested into any of them. And that goes for if there's a loss, if I have to, you know, pull a plant out because it just wasn't thriving, I might be losing 40 cents, which is awesome because we can plant our own seeds. Rock wool's only about 8 cents to 11 cents per rock wool. These net pots, I reuse these over and over and over again. I estimated that I need about 5 per tower per year, which is like $5 a year. What else? The minerals go to feed all the plants that are in the system. So the amount that one little plant that may have failed used is really microscopic in the grand scheme of it. Same with the power. The power is growing all the food. And so if you lose a plant, it's not like it was a huge loss. The cost is just really pennies, which is why I love this system so much, and why it's really a great way to replace the grocery store and save a lot of money, and ultimately save thousands of dollars long term. I have friends who've been growing in these for over 10 years in the sun, in the Florida sun, and they hold up, they don't break down. They are a UV blended material instead of a UV coated material, so they're gonna last a lifetime. And then we also have the advantage that they're in pieces, and so if for some reason I broke this piece, which would take a lot to do, you can't easily break these, then I just have to replace the one piece. I don't have to replace a whole tower or any moving parts. The only thing that really is a moving part in these is the pump, and then there's a timer. So those are two things that could eventually break, but again, the cost for both of those is really minimal too. So I share that just to say, if you're at the end of your gardening season and you feel like you've had some failures, it's this time of year that it gets a little bit difficult to garden. No matter where you're at, it's hot. My soil gardens and my flower gardens and my permaculture, everything is just a little bit wild. And you know, it's just a good time to evaluate how did it go and how, you know, what things I liked about my tower gardens and what things I want to do different next year. And so, same with my permaculture landscape. I want to do more flowers next year. I actually, my son's in the process of weed whacking the entire no-dig gardens back down, and we're going to turn them back into lawn. I've decided I kept them in this year while I experimented with growing the majority of our food on the towers. And I just wanted to see how I felt about just doing towers instead of soil gardens. And I had not once did I desire to go out and garden in my soil gardens. So that told me that it's okay to just let those go. They're very high maintenance. They require a lot of weeding and a lot of maintaining, and I'm just really not interested in that anymore now that I have found I can grow way more than I did in my soil gardens on the towers, and I can grow more consistently. And the workload here is this. Like, I've had to do this. I've never done it with the citric acid, but you need to deep clean your towers probably, I think I do about twice a year. Sometimes in the winter, I'll feel like they just need a freshening up, and I'll take them outside and give them a blast with the hose while my plants are in there and just blast in between to clean things up. But a deep cleaning, I'm averaging about twice a year, typically just these big season changes, this summer coming into fall. And then I did do a big cleanup when I moved them from the garage outside. I gave them a nice little touch up then too. So yeah, this has been way easier than the soil gardens ever were. So it's been a great year to just know that, like, I'm okay shutting those soil gardens down. I had a lot of fear about doing that because I have invested a lot of money in compost, a lot of time creating those gardens, but they don't hold, and I would have to add more compost if I want to grow in them next year. I would have to haul in some kind of cover and some wood chips for the paths, and all of that's just money and time. And the whole point of the tower gardens was to start saving money from that and saving the time and the energy and all the work that was involved in that. So I do want to invest in my raised beds for the things I can't grow on a tower, and that's where I'm going to put that time now. And you may hear me talk about that a lot on this channel. I have a tagline: simple, sustainable solutions for growing food in any space. And trying to make that as easy and effortless as possible is my goal. So, because the goal is the maximum amount of food, I don't trust the current food situations. Some of the things that are allowed in this country to be sprayed on our food are really, really corrupt, in my opinion, and dangerous. And my goal is just to find the easiest way to grow the most food and the most affordable way possible. What I have here is my tower is turned upside down, the base, so that that bottom one can, so that the bottom grow pot could get washed. I'm gonna see if I can get this out, and I'm gonna just try to blast these with the hose. They're not coming clean. I can scrub these, but I feel like that's gonna take a really long time. The citric acid, I don't know, everyone said it was like a miracle and they just come right clean. I'm not having that experience. These still have a lot of algae on them and need a lot of cleaning. So I don't know if I'll invest in that again. I don't know if that was really worth it. So this one doesn't want to come off. I'm gonna let it go into an area where it can decompose a little bit. And that's what I'll do sometimes. A lot of times I feed them to my chickens, whatever food's left. And then I go gather the net pots out of my chicken coop when they've devoured all the roots and everything. So let's get a hose, see if we can't blast this off. Look at all these gorgeous starts. I've got peas and all my zucchinis. So it's time to get these towers turned over so I can start growing some new, nice, young, healthy plants. And one thing you may find is that your tower gets a little bit more sediment than mine do. If you have hard water, that can be common. And you'll see on here, and I think I talk about this at one point, algae's normal. I'll get that question a lot. People will start growing in their rock wool and it'll grow green algae on the top while they're starting their seedlings. Algae is just a part of hydroponics. Hydroponics and aeroponics. Aeroponics is a form of hydroponics. These are not sterile systems. These are systems that still have natural bacteria and all the things that you're going to find on plants in the soil. And so there were some studies done that were investigating if the bacteria needed to absorb nutrients on plants. You can find that bacteria in the soil if that was on hydroponic plants, and they found that it was on the roots of the plants. So we still have a diverse, healthy bacterial system at play here, and the cleaning isn't to create a sterile environment and to keep these in a sterile environment. It's really just so that the towers look a little bit nicer. Honestly, you can let them get pretty dirty and they still grow food. I have one right now that's way beyond what I care for it to look like, but it's been so hot that I haven't wanted to fuss with it, and I haven't had to. The food I've been harvesting off of it is absolutely amazing. But I do recommend staying on top of it. If you are getting a lot of sediment buildup, it's better to go ahead and wipe that down and blast it off a little bit every month instead of waiting until it gets out of control, because then you have to take it apart and scrub it. It's a lot more work. If I can just come in and wipe down things every month and tidy them up, then they look better. I feel better about them. It's not overwhelming, and it just makes cleaning them a lot easier. I'm still having to do what I would always do, which is wipe them with a microfiber cloth and some Broners. So I don't think I'll be doing the citric acid. Maybe if they have yellowing, I know sometimes towers can get some yellowing on them. Maybe it's good for that. But for just removing the algae and the dirt, I think it's best just to use Broners and a microfiber cloth and blast them with the hose. And I do the best I can with these. I'm not trying to go for like making them brand new again. They're never going to be brand new again. And I'm about to put plants in here, like as soon as we're done. So it's more just keeping it under control. All right. I will say these baby greens extension kits are the hardest to clean out of all the things because they have so many lines and parts. They just have a lot more like areas to them. So some Dr. Broners. And this works great. So some of my other thoughts on how I grew this year. I was curious if I could grow enough tomatoes to store and like can, and the answer is yes. I've been doing some of that. If I wanted to do our year's supply, because we can have fresh tomatoes year round, I don't need as much as like somebody who's just growing a garden once a year and trying to put up their food, because we eat fresh off of these. So we're not going to be doing as much like canned green beans and things like that. My neighbor gave me a bunch of green beans and I canned those just to have on the shelf. But because we have the towers, we have access to fresh green beans year round. So I can definitely, look how clean that is. Yeah, so nice. I'll blast these with the hose. I can definitely put away several jars of salsa and spaghetti sauce and just tomatoes, and I'll probably do that next year. I did quite a few this year, and I still have tons of food on these towers that needs to be given away or preserved in some way. And that's the other thing I want to do better next year. I want to grow more varieties of foods and less of the same foods, because I actually don't love when there's too much of one thing and I have to figure out how to deal with that food. Shishito peppers, for example, I planted way too many of those. I like to eat those a couple of times a week and prepare those as a meal. And I do like to dry some to have as dried peppers in the winter to add to Thai dishes and things, because they actually get a little bit of a kick when they're red and dry, and that's really nice. For in the winter months, instead of having a hot pepper, I can add a few of those and it kind of fills that hot pepper void for some of those meals. But definitely have too many eggplant and a few other things that I'm just not super happy about having to go harvest that much and not really know what to do with it, because the goal here is interval planting and to harvest the food we're going to eat for the week. And then if there are a few things I intentionally want to put away for the year, that's different, like the tomatoes, but not being in a situation where I have to kind of feel stressed and overwhelmed and I have to get out here and harvest things because there's too much on the plant and it's going to break off. I really want to avoid that kind of stuff. It's one of the reasons I like the towers over soil gardening, because it's about coming out and finding the food available to eat and making your meals out of that, more than growing all your food at one time, having it all come in at the same time, and then having to deal with it. So like I mentioned before, I miss okra. I didn't put enough emphasis on some things that I really wanted, like spaghetti squash, and I wanted some meat, sweet meat pumpkins, melons. I really want to do some watermelon and some cantaloupe next year, and I didn't put a whole lot of emphasis on those, mostly because they're trellising and I don't have a good trellis system where I'm at. So I want to make that a priority next year. I think I mentioned okra, right? Definitely want to do okra next year. What else? Want to master radishes. That's a big one on my list. I eat a lot of radishes, and I have not quite mastered the radishes on the towers. Beets and turnips, those I've done really well, but I didn't stay consistent with them, and so I haven't had enough of those things. Now that will become easier as we move into the fall gardens and the winter gardens, because those are cool weather crops. But you can grow them in the tower in the summer and in most regions. I'm not going to say every region you can do that. If your temperatures are mild, we're like low 90s as a high. We can get upper 90s, but it's not typical. Some of you guys are in really, really hot weather this year. Really hot weather. I've had a lot of you just really struggling with the heat. And the thing with that is there's some tricks you can do for your tower, but it's also just accepting that maybe in those hot summer months it's just watermelons, okra, cantaloupe, things that can tolerate that, and save the rest. And I mentioned on the last video, you can use those hot summer months to start baby plants and have your tomatoes maturing so that they're ready to bloom in the fall when it cools off a little bit. Same with peppers. And then just stay focused on the hot weather months. You can also just move your tower inside. That is what I was going to do with this tower this year, because we haven't had lettuce in a while. I've been growing endive and kale, and I've had greens, but we haven't had any just standard lettuce because I didn't move this tower inside. So next year, I'd like to move it inside too. So this is all, these take a while, like I said, just because of all these crevices on the baby greens extension kit, but it comes up pretty quick. And the stuff on the inside, I'm just going to blast away. I'm more concerned about the outside, just because I like my towers to look nice, and in the summer they don't. They don't look terrible. They've got gorgeous food on them, but they get dirty this time of year. It's one thing about the winter. When these go in the garage, they're so clean, and the food is so green because it has a different the chlorophyll in plants, the light changes how dark that is. So my greens, when I grow them in our garage, are so green. They're so dark green. They're absolutely gorgeous. And being able to grow in the garage has been really great, because winters you can get sad seasonal affective disorder here, and I get kind of bored. And last year was the first year I didn't have any of that. Like, I would come out and garden for 2 hours a day and just hang out with the plants and make videos, and that was awesome. This stuff is so stingy. I don't like the citric acid. I'm not going to do that again. You can also use a magic eraser on these, but that is a little bit toxic. Not good for your hands. I also just ordered some cleaning supplies from Malaluka, and super excited because I haven't been able to do a lot of cleaning supplies. I have this, it's kind of interesting. So I like the supernatural and can just use vinegar, right? And don't need shampoo for my hair and things like that. But my children have become teenagers, and they have become their own individual humans, which is the goal, right? We want them to have their own personalities and find their way in the world, so it's all good. But what I have found is, because I don't have a lot of sudsy soaps, shampoos, things that are like real cleaners in the house. They have been buying their own stuff when they have the opportunity and they're out with a friend or other people at the Walmart or places like that, and have brought some really toxic things into our home. And I'm not faulting them because they're just trying to find their own way with their own hygiene, and they're desiring something different than their super crunchy mom who doesn't use shampoo wants. So I've switched over to Melaleuca to try and fill that gap so that we can have clean products and cleaning products that they're going to be happy using, and shampoos and things like that to kind of fill that need that they have, so we aren't going to the Walmart and bringing in terribly toxic, horrible things into the house, because we can't have that, right? So all that to say, there are a couple of cleaners that I put in my cart that are coming this week, specifically that I think would work really well for the towers. Things like, they have a bleach replacement. I think it's a bleach replacement. I don't remember all the things. But there's different... Hey, are you working out? Okay. Okay. Yeah, and so I'm excited to try some of those because I could see those working really well to clean these in the future. Just based on reading the product description and what they're for. Like a tub and tile cleaner, a natural one from Melaleuca is one I'm going to try on these and see if that works. Definitely not going to use the citric acid again. I don't even know where to pour this because I can't pour it in the gardens. It'll kill them. I guess I'll just pour it on the rocks here. Ooh, it's so stingy. All right, one more. And then we'll work on the base. And since recording this video, I did get those cleaning products in and have had some great successes with those. So I will put a link below if you're interested in learning about some of the natural products that we're bringing into our home to make sure that we're not sneaking in or being tempted to purchase some of those really toxic things at the store. And then just dealing with things that are biologicals really help to break down biological things like the algae on these towers I have found. So they have been a great addition. So if you're interested, check out the link below where you can contact me and I can send you a link to those so you can take a look. All right, this came pretty clean. There's a little algae inside. Not super worried about that. Towers get dirty. It's just part of it. What's interesting with this one is it got dirtier than the ones being used. I guess just sitting out with no plants to protect it. We're just going to give it a good scrub with the microfiber. What I'm doing is loosening any buildup. And then I'm just going to blast it with the hose. So definitely like this way better than the soaking method. And the soaking method again puts you at risk of having to empty your tank if you feel like you've got to do that. Which then puts you at starting over. And we never want to be starting over. Alright. Good enough. This one's super dirty over here. And what I mean by starting over is sometimes I'll see people who will let things get really, really big, and they'll have lettuce that sits in their tower for 8 months, and then all of a sudden everything gets really overgrown and dirty and old, and then they have to take everything out, take the tower apart, clean it, and start from scratch. And then that cycle keeps repeating. And I try to teach to avoid that, because it's better to grow your lettuce up to 5 to 6 weeks, 7 at the most, pull the whole thing out, start a new seedling, keep younger plants in your tower. They put less wear and tear and produce less dirt, and the tower gets less dirty if you can do that. Things like tomatoes and peppers, they're in there a long time, squash especially, and those make a mess. Those are dirtier plants. If you're growing full-size plants, they're just going to create more of a mess. But if we can eliminate some of the things like lettuce and kale and the greens sitting in our tower too long, it really can help significantly, and it ensures you're eating a lot more food off your towers, that you're eating it more quickly. It tastes better when you eat things younger, and I believe it's healthier for you that way.
And I'll keep you guys posted on the Melaleuca products. I'm really hoping the one I'm going to try is going to be a way I can just come in and touch these up while there's plants in them. And that's what I do in the fall, spring, and winter. I just do touch-ups every month or so, and they stay nice and white and really beautiful. It's these summer hot months where everything just gets so big and the algae likes the heat. And algae is perfectly normal. If you're new to tower gardening, your rock wool, when you start your seeds, will most likely get algae on it. And that's just part of hydroponic growing. It's not harmful. It doesn't cause any damage. Some people say hydrogen peroxide gets rid of it. I don't. I would never even consider trying to get rid of it or maintain it, because it's just a part of growing this way, and that would create a situation where I was having to work a lot and worry about something that doesn't need to be worried about. So I don't worry about it. Doesn't cause any harm. And we just give them a freshening up and they're like new. All right, we're gonna hose this one. All right, guys, that is it. Tower's clean. I'm actually going to keep recording, but for a separate video that's going to come up that shows you how a tower garden works. So if you want to see this tower put back together and all the plants that I'm going to transplant into there, I've got peas. I'm actually going to put a cage on this home unit. Super excited about that. Then watch the next video and you can catch how this looks when it's fully put back together and thriving with new seedlings and some more mature plants that I'm going to put back into this system. And my thoughts, I'm not going to do the citric acid. I don't think it's worth it. Microfiber and Broners to scrub works great. I'll keep you guys posted on some of the newer products I'm going to be trying to see really just if those can break down some of the algae a little bit easier so I can just hose it off. That's the goal, is find something that breaks down the dirt, and then by spraying it, and then we can just blast it off with the hose and not have to scrub, or maybe just do a little wipe down. But these look pretty good. There's a little in there. I may give them one more rinse once I put the tower together, and that's an option too. You can put the tower together and then just give it a nice blasting from the hose from the top down and let everything flush out before you put the tower part back onto the basin or the reservoir of water. But overall, really happy about it. Glad I got this done. I mean, what was that, like 20 minutes? And I put this off for 3 months. I put it off because I was busy and didn't want to grow in this tower. But don't get overwhelmed if your tower is dirty. It's not that complicated. It can feel like it. I know that feeling. I've been going through it where I just look at the tower and go, oh, not today. But if you can just bring yourself to do it, it's really simple. And I will see you guys on the next video where I'm going to build this tower and load her up.